Welcome to Life Stories, where the quietest betrayals often lead to the loudest awakenings. Imagine trusting someone so deeply, only to find yourself blindfolded, abandoned, and left to figure out whether you even matter at all. What would you do if the people you loved the most turned your life into a cruel game and expected you to crawl back, broken? Today's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about what happens when a woman refuses to let her heartbreak define her. It's about the strength it takes to walk away, not with rage, but with a quiet, devastating grace. Stay with us because by the end of this story, you might find yourself asking, when everything falls apart, who do you choose to become? Let's begin. The first time Ava Carter realized she was truly alone was the day the people she loved most left her blindfolded at an abandoned gas station on Old Creek Road. It had started with laughter. Fake laughter. The kind that sounded a little too loud, a little too forced. Ava had convinced herself it was just nerves. Maybe they were nervous about pulling off some elaborate surprise for her 35th birthday. She clutched the silk scarf Jake had given her, the same one they used to cover her eyes. She had even smiled when Ethan, her husband of 12 years, tied the knot behind her head with deliberate fingers. "You ready for the best birthday of your life?" Ethan whispered against her ear, his breath warm and familiar. She nodded. She didn't know then that every memory she had built with him was about to detonate like a landmine beneath her feet. The car ride had been a strange mix of teasing voices, the soft clinking of bourbon bottles, and the occasional rough laughter. Ava counted the turns, the way the sunlight flickered behind her blindfold, the way her stomach twisted tighter with each mile they put between her and everything she thought she knew. When they finally pulled to a stop, gravel crunched under her heels as Ethan helped her out. The air smelled like gasoline and dust. A breeze whistled through the broken windows of a crumbling gas station. The blindfold slid off with a theatrical flourish. "Surprise!" Jake and Chris shouted, nearly buckling with laughter. Ethan smiled wide. That charming boyish grin that used to melt her heart. Now it gutted her. What is this?" she asked, blinking in the brutal sunlight. "It's a test," Ethan said, tossing her phone onto the cracked concrete, "to see if you're as independent as you always claim to be." The car door slammed, their laughter out across the empty landscape as they sped away, a cloud of dust swallowing the taillights. Ava stood there, motionless, the scarf dangling from her fingers. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to scream, to chase after them. But something inside her, a core she didn't know she had, went still. They thought she would crawl home, humiliated and desperate. They thought she would beg for forgiveness. Instead, she turned on her heel, boots crunching over broken glass, and disappeared behind the sagging shell of the old building. Hidden from the road, she pulled off her right boot and retrieved a roll of cash tucked deep in the lining. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to start something that none of them could ever undo. When the blue sedan she'd arranged pulled into the lot, the driver looked startled to see a woman standing alone in the ruins of the past. "Mrs. Quinn?" he called out hesitantly, using the fake name she had given. "That's me," Ava said, tossing the silk scarf into the dirt without a backward glance. She didn't go home. She didn't call the police. She didn't give them the satisfaction of her fear. Instead, by nightfall, Ava Carter was a ghost. In Paris, the world smelled of rain and baking bread and second chances. She found a crumbling hostel in Montmartre and paid for a week in cash. Her room had peeling wallpaper and a bed that sagged in the middle as fat, but through the tiny window, she could see the glow of Sacré-Cœur shining against the night sky. The first night, she wept, for the girl she used to be, for the life she thought she had. Then she opened her grandmother's locket, still hanging around her neck, and whispered a promise into the darkness. "I will never let them define me again." The next weeks blurred into a frantic routine. Language classes at the community center, job hunting at tiny financial firms willing to take a risk on a foreigner, long nights learning to navigate a city that could chew you up and swallow you whole if you didn't keep moving. It was at Langston Financial that her second life truly began. "You're American?" Philip Langston had asked during her interview, peering over thin reading glasses. Originally, Ava had replied carefully, "But Paris is home now." By the end of the month, she had a job. By the end of the year, she had a life. And within 2 years, she had caught the attention of Nathaniel Reed, a shipping magnate who noticed not just her sharp mind, but the way she saw connections where others saw only numbers. Still, Ava kept her walls high and her secrets buried deeper. Until one spring afternoon, as the pink blossoms littered the Parisian streets like confetti, an email arrived on Nathaniel's desk about a struggling American construction company seeking investment. Reynolds Construction. Her stomach twisted violently. She knew that name. She knew it too well. When Nathaniel looked up from his screen, concern in his eyes, Ava managed to keep her face blank, her voice steady. "Set up the meeting," she said. "But if it's connected to," Nathaniel began. "I know," she cut him off softly. "That's why I need to be there." She wasn't sure whether it was revenge or redemption she was chasing. All she knew was that after all the betrayals, after all the nights she had fought the silence alone, she was ready to look her past in the eye, and this time she wouldn't flinch. What would you do if the person who destroyed you suddenly needed your help to survive? Could you forgive, or would you seize the chance to finally close the door on your past? Next, Ava steps into the lion's den, not to be devoured, but to remind them who she has become. The reunion they never saw coming begins now. The meeting was set for a Tuesday morning, the kind of gray, drizzling day that made New York feel smaller, more intimate, like the whole city was holding its breath. Ava stood before the mirror in the sleek guest bathroom of Nathaniel's Manhattan penthouse, adjusting the pearl earrings he had given her on their first anniversary. They gleamed softly against her skin, a reminder of everything she had built since that cruel afternoon on Old Creek Road. Her suit, dark charcoal and precisely tailored, made her feel like she was slipping into armor. Yet under the crisp fabric, a war raged inside her. She wasn't afraid of Ethan Carter. She was afraid of what she might become when she saw him again. Nathaniel appeared behind her in the mirror, straightening his tie with practiced calm. "You don't have to do this," he said gently, as if reading the tremor she tried to hide in her fingers. "I do," Ava replied, voice even. "I have to look him in the eyes and know he can't touch me anymore." Nathaniel's gaze held hers a moment longer before he nodded. "Then let's finish this." The conference room at Atlantic Horizon Shipping was an expanse of steel and glass, perched so high above the city that the clouds seemed to brush against the windows. Ava chose a seat at the table facing the door, her laptop open, the company's financial reports arrayed in neat stacks before her. When the assistant buzzed to announce their arrival, Ava's heart stuttered once, only once, then steadied into a calm, brutal rhythm. The door opened and Ethan walked in. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. Why would he? The woman sitting at the head of the table, cool and composed, bore no resemblance to the desperate, blindfolded wife he had abandoned. But then recognition slammed into him. His face blanched, his steps faltered. "Ava," he breathed, like a man seeing a ghost. "Isabel Quinn," she corrected smoothly, her voice cutting through the silence. "Strategic advisor to Mr. Reed." And Nathaniel, standing beside her, nodded once with a kind of power that spoke volumes without saying a word. Ethan stumbled through the introductions, his financial advisor Marcus picking up the slack, pitching a desperate story about growth potential and European expansion. Ava listened, impassive, letting him twist and flail. But as the meeting wore on, something unexpected happened. Buried beneath the slick sales pitch, the carefully polished spreadsheets, Ava spotted it. Fear. Real, gut-deep fear in Ethan's eyes. This wasn't just a man seeking investment. It was a man drowning. As Marcus droned on about projected revenues, Ava flipped through the documents they had provided, her eyes narrowing. It wasn't just financial mismanagement that had brought Reynolds Construction to its knees. Ethan had mortgaged everything. The family home, the legacy his father had spent decades building, every last asset. He hadn't come to New York seeking a business partner. He had come seeking a lifeline. And in that moment, Ava felt something fracture inside her. Was this the justice she had wanted, watching him crumble, watching him beg? Or was it something more dangerous, the tiny flickering ember of pity? When the meeting adjourned, Nathaniel led them to the elevator, his hand resting lightly at the small of Ava's back. Ethan lingered, the documents clutched loosely in his hands. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, voice hoarse, "for everything." Ava turned to him, seeing the boy he had once been, the boy who had made her laugh under the Texas stars, the boy who had promised forever, and the man who had shattered it all with a smirk and a blindfold. "I'm not the woman you left behind," she said quietly, "and you're not the man I loved." The elevator chimed. Marcus stepped inside. Ethan hesitated on the threshold, eyes pleading, broken. "If you ever cared about me at all," he said, "you won't let everything my father built fall apart." The doors slid shut behind him, swallowing his words. Nathaniel watched her carefully as they returned to the conference room. "You don't owe him anything," he said. Ava knew he was right, but the battle inside her was far from over. Because buried beneath years of betrayal and heartbreak, there was still a small, stubborn part of her that remembered what it felt like to believe in him, to believe in second chances. Later that night, Ava stood alone on the balcony, the city lights sprawling endlessly before her. She thought of the girl she used to be, the girl who had trusted too easily, loved too deeply. Could she abandon Ethan to the wreckage he had created? Or was saving herself always going to mean learning when to walk away without hatred in her heart? Would you have the strength to walk away from someone who once destroyed you, even when they are finally at your mercy? Share your thoughts below. Ava is faced with a choice that could define not just her future, but the woman she is becoming. Stay with us for the next chapter of her journey. The rain came that night, steady and relentless, washing the city streets clean. Ava stood at the tall windows of Nathaniel's apartment, watching the water blur the skyline into shimmering smudges of light and shadow. Inside her chest, a different kind of storm raged. She had spent years building a fortress out of resilience and ambition, brick by brick. She had thought the walls were high enough, strong enough to keep out the past. But seeing Ethan today, broken and desperate, had cracked something open inside her she hadn't been prepared for. Nathaniel came up behind her, wrapping a soft cashmere throw around her shoulders. He didn't say anything. He knew better than to crowd her now. "I thought it would feel like victory," Ava whispered to the window, seeing him like that. "And does it?" Nathaniel asked quietly. She shook her head. "It just feels empty." Nathaniel rested his hands lightly on her arms. His warmth was steady, anchoring her to the present, to everything she had fought to build. "You don't owe him anything," he said again. "Not your pity, not your anger, not even your forgiveness." Ava leaned back into him, letting her eyes close. For a long moment, they just breathed together, two souls who had clawed their way back from ruin in different ways. But when she opened her eyes again, she knew what she had to do. "I need to see him one last time," she said. "Not as a broken girl looking for closure, but as the woman I am now." Nathaniel pressed a kiss to the side of her head. "Then go. End it your way." The next morning, Ava found Ethan sitting alone at a small cafe near Bryant Park, nursing a coffee that had long since gone cold. He looked smaller than she remembered, his shoulders hunched under the weight of defeat. He rose awkwardly when he saw her, unsure whether to embrace her or keep his distance. Ava sat down before he could decide. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. The rain drizzled down in silver threads outside the window. Finally, Ava broke the silence. "You asked me yesterday if I could help save your father's company," she said. "If I could help save you." Ethan swallowed hard, nodding. "I'm not going to invest," she said, her voice steady. "Atlantic Horizon will not save Reynolds Construction." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, as if bracing against a blow. "But I'm going to do something better," Ava continued. "I'm going to let it fall, and I'm going to let you fall with it." His eyes snapped open, shock flickering across his face. "You think that's mercy?" he asked, his voice rising. letting everything collapse? No, Ava said, her voice breaking ever so slightly. It's not mercy. It's justice. It's letting life teach you the lessons I can't. Lessons about trust, about loyalty, about the cost of cruelty. Ethan stared at her, breathing hard. I spent years thinking if I could just be better, just love harder, you'd see me. Choose me. Value me, she said, the words pouring out now, unstoppable. But you didn't want a partner. You wanted someone small enough to make you feel big. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes, but Ava didn't flinch. I forgive you, she said quietly. The words startled them both, but they were true. I forgive you, she repeated, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Ava stood, wrapping the throw tighter around her shoulders, as if sealing the moment away. Goodbye, Ethan, she said. He reached for her, but she was already walking away. Outside, the rain had slowed to a soft mist. Ava tilted her face to the sky, letting it wash over her. It felt like a baptism, a cleansing. When she returned to Nathaniel, he was waiting by the window, a quiet presence carved out of strength and patience. It's done, she said. You're free, he said. Ava crossed the room and pressed her forehead against his chest, letting herself be held for a long, long time. Weeks passed. Spring unfurled across the city, coaxing blossoms from barren branches and filling the parks with new life. Ava and Nathaniel flew to Paris for a gala, one of those glittering, too-perfect affairs that used to make her feel like an imposter. Now she belonged. Not because of the dress she wore or the title attached to her name, but because she had earned every inch of the life she stood in. Late that night, on the balcony of their Paris apartment, Nathaniel handed her a small box. Inside was a ring, delicate and unassuming, a thin band of twisted gold, simple but strong. I don't need grand promises, he said. Just this, whatever storms come, we weather them together. Ava slid the ring onto her finger, her hands steady, her heart sure. You're not saving me, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I already saved myself, but I choose you. I choose this. Nathaniel smiled, and for the first time in a long time, Ava Carter, no, Isabel Quinn, felt the future stretch before her like an open road, full of possibility. Not because she had forgotten the pain, but because she had survived it. Because she had built a life, not out of the wreckage of her past, but out of the fierce, unbreakable hope of what could still be. And somewhere deep inside her, a voice whispered, You are not what was done to you. You are what you chose to become after. How did Ava's journey impact you? Did you find yourself reflecting on your own strength and choices through her story? If you enjoyed this story, comment 100 to let us know. Tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from all around the world. And if Ava's story moved you, please share this video with your friends. Thank you for being part of Life Stories.